Chapter 27, Flame Snake Spear Technique. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. Ninth Prince, you should be careful. With a twist in the corner of his mouth, Xiukai poured his genuine chi into the body of the sword to activate 3 Inscription of Power series at the same time. The sword in his hand immediately increased its weight to 175 kilograms. He held the sword with both hands, waving it valiantly. There was an oscillatory chi billow wherever the sword went. His sword technique seemed simple, but it was efficient. It was not fancy, but every hit had shocking power. Zhang Yuochen also poured the genuine chi into the blue water sword to activate an Inscription of Ice series and an Inscription of Power series. The sword emitted freezing ice into the air and the air filled with white frost. Zhang Yuochen knew that he did not have as much power as Xiukai. He did not plan to confront the tough with toughness. Zhang Yuochen did some mysterious footwork while waving his sword. He dodged almost every attack. Meanwhile, Lin Fengxian, who stood outside the drill ground, watched Zhang Yuochen's footwork wholeheartedly. With surprise, he silently asked himself how he could be using the footwork of the sacred sword skill. The sword techniques of the spiritual stage all had corresponding footwork. Only by combining it with footwork could the sword technique reveal its real power. Right now, the footwork that Zhang Yuochen used matched the sacred sword skill exactly. Seeing Zhang Yuochen using this footwork, how could Lin Fengxian not be surprised? Xiukai's sword was extremely heavy. Naturally, it consumed a great amount of genuine chi. As the battle continued, Xiukai began to feel tired. There was sweat on his forehead and his genuine chi was halfway depleted. His original strategy had been to defeat Zhang Yuochen in a few movements. But after dozens of movements, he had not even touched Zhang Yuochen's sword. Crap. I fell for his trick. He was depleting his energy and genuine chi on purpose. Xiukai drew back a part of his genuine chi the moment that he realized it. As he activated only one Inscription of Power series, the heavy sword in his hands doubled in weight immediately. This is high time. Zhang Yuochen made a move. Sacred Guiding Sword. Zhang Yuochen waved his arm and struck, and an 8-meter-long sword breath flew from the ground, leaving a sword path in Xiukai's direction. Xiukai did not see it coming. He had never expected that Zhang Yuochen could practice a sword technique of the spiritual stage. In haste, Xiukai could only activate all his genuine chi and move his sword crosswise to counter. Bang! The sword breath hit the sword in Xiukai's hands and threw him away. All his clothes were torn into pieces. When he fell back on the ground, he was outside the drill ground. Xiukai looked at his bleeding hands, then glanced at Zhang Yuochen, who was standing upright on the drill ground. Bitterly, he acknowledged, "I've lost." When the battle ended, the audience could not recover from their shock. How could a warrior in the final state of the Yellow Realm be beaten by one in the Dawn state? He's really practicing the sacred sword skill. It's impossible. Lin Ningshan was quite shocked. She could not believe that Zhang Yuochen could practice the sacred sword skill. He even seemed better at it than she was. Could he be the mystery man we met at the central auction? Lin Fengxian seemed serious, and said, "It is not that simple. Ningshan, don't forget that the sacred sword skill we bought is not the master copy, but a handwritten copy by a superior of the Heaven Realm." Daddy, do you mean that the reason for Zhang Yuochen's extremely fast practice speed is the strength of the Heaven Realm hiding behind him? Lin Ningshan asked in surprise. Hush. Lin Fengxian made a gesture to silence her, and said in a low voice, "It's better to keep it in the family. We'll talk about it when we get back." Lin Ningshan nodded. Her grudge expanded as she stared at Zhang Yuochen. No wonder he could so easily dodge the sacred guiding sword that I used. He also practices this sword technique. How many secrets do you have, Zhang Yuochen? Even Xiukai is defeated. It seems that the Ninth Prince has practiced a sword technique of the spiritual stage. It is fair that he defeated Xiukai. The Ninth Prince must have reached the realm of sword following the heart. He is indeed a genius of sword techniques. No one dared to look down upon the Ninth Prince. Instead, they treated him like an incredible genius martialist. Some even thought his talent was as great as the Seventh Prince's. The following battle was the Fifth Prince versus Sitilnhai. The Fifth Prince was 19 years old and had reached the final state of the Yellow Realm with a third-class sacred mark. Sitilnhai, the first genius of the Situs, was 17 years old and had also reached the final state of the Yellow Realm with a 4th class of Blaze Sacred Mark. Situlunhai had his own reputation within the young generation of the entire Yunwu city. With his talent, he even had the chance to break through to the completion of the Yellow Realm and reach the Black Realm before the age of 20. Situlunhai carried a long black spear, standing on the drill ground proudly. He stared at the 5th prince across from him and exclaimed with confidence, "5th prince, you are no match for me." The 5th prince said, "We are both in the final state of the Yellow Realm. It will not be easy for you to win. You should know better than anybody else that my genuine chi has the power of Blaze. I have a 4th class of Blaze Sacred Mark. I have no equal in the same realm. You won't last 10 movements against my spear with your cultivation." Situlunhai's eyes were firm and sharp, full of confidence. Warriors with natural sacred marks were indeed more powerful than those with normal sacred marks in the same realm. "Really? We should let the battle decide who is stronger." The 5th prince picked up the combat sword in front of him, then activated his genuine chi to move fast through his 12 meridians. He poured all of it into the sword. PHHF. He activated 3 inscriptions in the sword. It immediately radiated out to 1 meter high light. The 5th prince made a move proactively, using a sword technique of the mid-class of the human stage. He waved the combat sword continually to form a vortex of sword light and cleaved at Situlunhai. To obtain a shining rank in the drill ground of the year-end assessment, most of the young warriors had learned at least one, or often several, martial techniques of the mid-class of the human stage. They wanted to achieve fame with one battle in the year-end assessment. The 5th prince was no exception. He had spent half a year practicing the Heavenlight sword skill, a martial technique of the mid-class of the human stage. It contained 8 movements in total, and the 5th prince had mastered 3 of them. "The Heavenlight sword skill is mediocre," Situlunhai said with a sneer. Situlunhai seemed at ease under the 5th prince's continuous attack. He waved the long black spear to counter back the 5th prince's every hit. Bang, bang. The long spear hit the combat sword and sparks flew out. "Sword of cloud and rain," the 5th prince shouted, then he jumped into the sky about 6 meters high, holding the hilt with both hands, and cleaved. The light of the combat sword became brighter, like a shower of illumination, falling on Situlungian. Situlungian had developed 13 meridians, 1 more than that of the 5th prince. The genuine chi moved fast in Situlungian's 13 meridians, gathering at his hands. His hands looked like a burning flame, and the flame rushed to the long black spear, activating the power of the 3 inscriptions of Fire series at the same time. Fire Snake. The Flame Snake Spear technique was a martial technique of the superior class of the human stage. The spear thrust like a fire snake, breaking all of the sword radiance made by the 5th prince. Bang! The 5th prince flew backward. His royal boa robe caught on fire, burning to ashes immediately. Situlunhai rushed forward and thrust his spear again. The end of the long spear hit the 5th prince in the chest, knocking him out of the drill ground. With a trace of blood in the corner of his mouth, the 5th prince raised himself from the ground and stared at Situlungian, who was standing at the center of the drill ground like a reincarnate spear god. He declared, "Flame Snake Spear technique. Terrific. If you had practiced it from the beginning, I wouldn't have lasted 3 movements." The spear technique that Situlungian had just used was extremely amazing. He definitely had reached the realm of spear following the heart. Plus, with the power of Blaze in his genuine chi, he had virtually no equal in the final state of the Yellow Realm. Outside the drill ground, Mo Hanlin said mildly, "Only the 9th prince and Situlungian stand now. It seems appropriate that Situlungian is the strongest of the Situ's young generation. Maybe we won't need the final battle." "Why?" Kinya blinked. Her eyelashes were long and neat. The charming light in her beautiful eyes could attract any man at any time. Mo Hanlin said, "With his cultivation, Situlungian is absolutely a young superior who has no equal even in the final state of the Yellow Realm. Although the 9th prince is a greater genius than Situlungian, he is only at the dawn state of the Yellow Realm. He could beat Xiu Kai, but beating Situlungian is out of the question." Almost everyone present was of the same opinion. They admitted that the 9th prince was a genius of martial arts, but they would not believe that he could beat Situlungian right now. If the 9th prince had another year to practice martial arts, it would be easy for him to beat Citylin Jian. But as of now, there is still a gap. A small smile showed on Kinya's red lips as she said, "Don't bet on it." A genius is called a genius because they can create miracles. I hope the ninth prince can create a miracle. If that's the case, I will have even more interest in him. Hee hee. Kinya's eyes narrowed a bit, like two bright crescents.